Now, this episode will be a little bit different as it's something I've been thinking about for a while. Sea of Thieves is very clearly a massive success and has now become a pillar of Xbox. Sea of Thieves was meant to last 10 years as a live service game, but does that mean the Sea of Thieves we all play now will span the entire 10 years? Looking at the recent success of the game with A Pirate's Life and 2021 shaping up to the biggest year for Sea of Thieves, 3 years into this plan, it looks like the future is still bright for the game. With an ever-evolving story and a well of lore to draw from, it's not like they'll be concluding anytime soon. Not to mention, A Pirate's Life showing us the team still has plenty of fuel in the tank. Before launch, Sea of Thieves was already planned to be a live service game, and Craig Duncan said he'd like to think they'll still be working on Sea of Thieves in 10 years' time. They admit they haven't got any concrete plans, but Joe Neate, the executive producer, did say they had a good idea of up to 3 years after launch. It does go to show how far in advance the team seemed to plan. The game's art style itself was even planned to be future-proofed, hence why they went for the cartoony art style. Look at how great Sea of Thieves still looks as a 3-year-old game. I strongly think they made the right decision to do this. Will this look just as impressive in 2028? Probably not, however it will still look a lot better compared to a realistic game. Just look at the games from 2011 that went for photorealism. Graphics aren't really an issue stopping these long-term plans anyways. Personally, I do think Sea of Thieves will get a sequel towards the end of the Series X's console generation, which coincidentally may be around 2027. The way the game is set up now allows it to be constantly updated, with Rare finding clever workarounds to technical limitations. I do think we'll see the game flourish once the Xbox One is no longer supported, as the team will get a bit more breathing room. On the other hand, there will always be a limit with hardware, servers, and what the engine can handle. With Unreal Engine 5 becoming the next big thing, it would be interesting to see how Sea of Thieves would benefit from being developed from the ground up for it. Now, would a sequel even be worth it to Microsoft? I think the answer is easily a straight up yes. Sea of Thieves is easily the top 3 most successful Microsoft IPs, maybe even including some of the new Bethesda IPs. I would go as far as saying it could be bigger than Forza at this point. If you compare Sea of Thieves to some other live service games that Microsoft has released, it easily has the most support out of all of them, even when considering its mixed reception at launch. Halo 5 received a year of monthly updates, then had a few more in 2017, then has no support to this day. Gears of War 4 had a year of content updates and was put into maintenance mode shortly after its first year, as did Gears 5, which is funny because Gears 5 actually smashed Sea of Thieves numbers on day one. Forza Horizon 4 did have some great support, but is now getting a sequel later this year. The key here is longevity, so as long as Sea of Thieves keeps hitting milestones, people keep purchasing cosmetics, and people keep buying the game, then support will continue. Sea of Thieves regularly is a Steam bestseller and has topped the Windows Store charts since A Pirate's Life release. But does that mean Microsoft sees franchise potential in Sea of Thieves? Again, this question has already been answered for us. Sea of Thieves is one of the most heavily merchandised IPs from Microsoft, with the merch store getting new items regularly, brand deals with Monopoly and U2s, 2 books and several graphic novels. Hell, even a tabletop RPG with several expansions has been produced. Please make some high quality First Figures too, Rare. I'm absolutely dying to spend hundreds of pounds on those. Oh, and don't forget the multi-million-dollar deal that would have been struck with Disney back in 2019, way before the game was hitting these impressive milestones. Rare are also constantly hiring for Sea of Thieves and have the biggest number of employees working on it than ever before. So it's safe to say the game will be supported for at least a few more years. Now, it may look good when we look at the numbers, but there are some challenges and downsides of a sequel to Sea of Thieves. The first one, which is a bitter pill to swallow, is going to be the end of support for the first game. Not only is this risky, as the sequel might not be as popular, but there would inevitably be no real updates for Sea of Thieves for a good few years. This means the original game would be pretty uninteresting while the development for a sequel would be in full swing. It's bad for me, bad for you, and bad for profits. Not to mention, the cost of developing a new game would be more expensive to make than adding on to an already profitable game. A sequel couldn't just be the same map we know and love with new quests or mechanics, it would probably need a full new map too to make it feel different. A whole new map would involve eradicating some of our favourite spots and least favourites. Everyone's island is someone's favourite, except Old Faithful. No one likes Old Faithful. If the map changed, it just wouldn't be Sea of Thieves then. I know you can explain it by the shroud shifting, but still wouldn't feel right. Map expansions, story missions, and new quests and mechanics can just be added to the current game. So, is there even a point? Another big thing for us to consider is that what happens to our pirates? Do they just disappear, or do they come with us? Do we keep our cosmetics and purchases, or do we have to start from scratch? It's tough to strike a balance, as people are obviously very attached to their pirates, like I've had mine from day one, but wouldn't be pleased with starting a new game, only to have nothing to earn or very little at that. Would the objectives be the same? Get to Pirate Legend after getting 3 factions to level 50? Will lots of the old improvements be coming back, or will we have to start from scratch and have to wait for improvements to come over time? A lot of live service games start from scratch on day one, so there's fewer maps or characters than the last entry, then we have to wait for 2 years for it to get up to the same level of content as before. I can think of the phenomenal amount of time it would take to make a sequel from scratch up to the level of the game as we know it. Think, this is around 8 years of development time. Imagine going back to Shrouded Spoils and waiting for 2 years for Sea of Thieves 2 to be where we are now. The appeal seems to be shrinking at this point, and as I've had a chance to think about it and got all these thoughts out, it seems continuous updates are the best option. A fully fledged sequel to Sea of Thieves might be a bad idea at the moment, but what about some spin-offs? Plenty of Microsoft's games have had spin-offs, such as Halo Wars and Gears Tactics, the latter of which is probably the best Gears of War since 2011. A Pirate's Life showed that the story missions have a lot more potential than even I thought, so maybe a co-op story-based game would be something that could be done. I understand PvP is a big part of the appeal, for me anyway, but the story and talent are there to carry a story-based game, maybe with some RPG elements too. The expansion of AI threats made these tall tales even more enjoyable, and the sky's the limit with what they could be done when the constraints of a shared world are removed. Or how about a strategy game in which you have to raise a fleet of ships, build strongholds and outposts to take control of the Sea of Thieves, like Halo Wars crossed with Civilization? Or what about Sea of Thieves Kart, where we get to race around multiple tracks around the Sea of Thieves, with characters like Duke, the Pirate Lord and the Gold Hoarder being available to use? Power-ups could include cursed cannonballs, bananas but with appeals on, and kegs to drop behind you. The last one was a joke, but you get my point. Sea of Thieves may not need a sequel, nor is it necessarily a good idea at this time, but in a few years' time when the game is actually dying down, I wouldn't be surprised if a sequel was greenlit to stoke the flames again. Before we go, on screen are the winners of the gift card giveaway for reaching 10k subscribers. Thank you all for entering. I've replied to your comments, and if you can, drop me a message on Discord, Twitter or Xbox. Names in the description and I'll get these sorted for you. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please drop a like and subscribe. It costs absolutely nothing and really helps me out. Plus, you get mediocre Sea of Thieves content twice a week, so what's not to love? Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.